Welcome to Uploading, the podcast where we take you behind the wheel with the world's best creators, marketers, and professionals who have cracked the code on how to profit through content. You'll learn the ins and outs of content strategy, creation, production, distribution, growth, platforms, tools, and more. If you haven't already, be sure to join Cast Magic, the all-in-one content workspace for professionals. We'll be sending out tips from our shows in our weekly newsletter, and we've also got a Slack community of over 1,000 creators, so make sure to drop in and say hello. And now, get ready for the show.
What is going on? We're in another episode of Uploading today, and if you have been creating content or even consider creating content online, you've definitely thought about posting videos on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, or even X. And so creating content for video is one of the fastest ways to grow your audience. We all know that. And so that is why today we're talking with Scott Millard. He is the founder of Videospark, an online animation studio specializing in creating short content for independent and VC-backed SaaS companies. So basically, he helps companies make more money by creating videos for them. And we all want to make videos and we all want to make more money. So, Scott, I'll let you kick us off. Tell us a little bit more if that's spot on what you're doing and tell us more about Videospark.
Yeah, 100%. Well, first off, thanks for having me. This is always fun. Connecting people. I'm probably going to call it Twitter, honestly, but it's always a blast chopping up with people from Twitter. So yeah, just thanks for having me first off. But yeah, so essentially you summarize it pretty well. Basically, we specialize in doing like these short motion graphic videos for really any tech-enabled brand. So whether you have a software, platform, app, extension, plugin, like you name it, we kind of specialize in that. But yeah, the reason that we do that, and really the purpose of the business is, I've been doing video since 2016, and what I've found is that video is, if you look at marketing as a whole, video is the best mechanism to basically do everything at once. So that's educating potential users, getting people emotionally invested, getting them excited, showing them how something works, and you can really wrap that all into one medium. So we can go into that more if that's relevant in terms of comparing it to other kinds of content.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, video is great for definitely like just pushing a message through, telling a story. And so I assume that is, what would you say is your main goal when you're working with someone or when you're working with a client? What is the goal of a video at the end of the day?
I think at the end of the day, it's really, regardless if it like teaches you anything or makes you want to try something out or whatever, I think it's just to inspire your audience. If you go back to really the origins of what video is, like it started with movies, right? Like a really long time ago. And the purpose of those movies was really, one, to tell a story, and then two, hopefully have that story inspire the audience. So a lot of people overlook actually the narrative part of video and telling a story. And so that's really important.
So how do you think of like intention? I feel like a lot of people are just making content. There's no intention behind it. And it seems like putting in the work for having the intention, it is more work, but it's worth the effort. I think Neil Patel, I saw something today, like over 200 million videos get uploaded to social platforms daily or something. Like, you need to have intention into how to stand out. So how should people think about intention in terms of like their video roadmap?
Yeah, I mean, really intention should be in front of everything you do marketing wise, right? And so when we talk about intention, I guess specifically for video, it's what message are you trying to send? And let's use like viral short form content as an example, because that's what everyone is familiar with. If you see a video on Instagram and it has 3 million views, it's typically because it either pissed people off a lot or is something that they really resonated and agreed with, or both at the same time, which is actually a deal, having it be polarizing, right? So in terms of strategy, it's just what message are you trying to send? And then based on what message you want, what messaging you want, that's where scripting comes in. So I would always recommend, I think a big problem with the volume of content is a lot of people are like you said, they're doing it not intentionally. And a lot of times that means they're not really scripting or practicing or even just getting good in front of the camera if that's what you're doing. So yeah, it's really just around the messaging that you want to put out there. And so coming back to what might be helpful for your audience is, what do people care about with your product? What are they struggling with that your product solves? And like, what are their goals and dreams and desires, and what are they afraid of? And really framing your video content in the lens of what your audience actually cares about and not what you care about.
No, I was just going to ask Scott, when it comes to thinking through, because like you guys have had the pleasure of working with so many different clients. I know the way that, myself, Ramon, and you got connected was back in the day, DTC Pod, we were creating content, and Scott was like, oh my God, like I can make you guys a sick trailer. And that's kind of how this all started.
Ramon was my first client.
Trent. Yeah.
Trent. Yeah. That was like early days.
That was client number one, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That's epic. So, I mean, since then, you've obviously had the ability to work with a whole bunch more clients. You've put out a whole bunch of content. I'd love to kind of get an idea of when you sit down with someone, right? Like you see there needs to be intention behind the content. There needs to be a plot to it, a narrative. What emotion are we going to evoke? But I'd love for you to kind of just go through your process when you're onboarding either a new person or a team, or they have something that you're trying to get out there. How do you like evoke that message from them and then be like, okay, got it, let me do my thing? So just break that down for us.
Yeah, so it's formulaic. Like if you make 100 videos, or if you've made 100 videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so it's a reps thing. In terms of our onboarding and our process and everything, it's really basically what we talked about in the last question. And that's really, what does your product do? Why does it do that? What pain point is it solving for your target user base? And like, how is it going to benefit them? And that's really all you need to know, because that's what your messaging should be about, is basically those like 4 or 5 questions. So in terms of messaging, yeah, that's basically it.
And then going one step further beyond the messaging, Scott, like when it comes to, because like you guys do like these really like high produced, like animated scripted sort of videos. So like, how do you go from that, like where you've got that portion done? How do you decide what needs to actually go in the execution to like produce and get the end result that like gets the video across?
Basically, what is going to represent that messaging in the most simple way, the most effective way, the most quickly, I guess. So, I mean, with how we're niched down in the tech-enabled space, most of the time that's through particular features on a platform or software or whatever, right? So, it's really showing like what is, these are product-led companies. So what is relevant in their product for the problem they're solving? If it's like a sales-led strategy or something like that, then it would be less about features and more about really digging into the pain points of the customers. So it's in the lens of what is your strategy in terms of how you're pushing that outbound to, which is good to mention, like product-led, sales-led and stuff like that as well. So
I think you mentioned something really important, which is like, you mentioned your vertical of tech-enabled, you serve SaaS and you focus on that niche, and you basically dock for your own product. You use video, you sell video so companies can monetize their audience, etc. But then you yourself use video to monetize your own audience, which was posting your work on Twitter and X to really focus on that niche and build and start your agency. So you grew your account to over 7,000 followers. You closed over 250K in sales and customers through showing your work in an initial sprint. And then you went into YouTube, and we can talk about YouTube, but tell us about that phase initially of like focusing on that niche, focusing on X as a channel to kickstart your agency.
Yeah, I mean, before getting on X, I'd never had luck with really growing an audience anywhere. Probably wasn't trying hard enough, to be honest. But like, I'd had Instagram for a while, and that was like the whole like Jay Alvarez era type thing, like the personal brand. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I want to be like that guy.
I need a helicopter and jump out.
I was too young. I was like 15 or something, so that was gonna happen. But yeah. So with Twitter/X or whatever, basically the thing that really kickstarted it was basically just like shutting up and listening to people. So I had a friend who knew I did video stuff, and he told me, I feel like also to take it a step back, one of the biggest points of this or biggest like themes in this podcast is just like keep things simple. He basically told me, look, there's this guy who's posting videos. I think you can make these even better. Why don't you just try it? So I started doing work for free, which is something if people try to want to get into the video space or really do anything, I just really recommend starting for free if you're a total beginner. But it was really the giving value first thing. And so we started tagging founders and making videos for them for free. I started writing threads about how to use videos, how to make better videos, like where to source particular, like royalty-free stuff if you're like a bootstrap startup, and really just posting all of this stuff about what is going to, again, messaging, what is going to help the people that I want to work with. And then sure enough, like we started charging a couple $100 for video. Then we started charging a couple $1,000 for video, and it just really skyrocketed from there. And what really changed for me or was crazy is I tweeted something a year ago, and it was like my first viral thing. And that's when I really saw the potential of just building a personal brand and putting stuff out there. Cause we tweeted a thread and we booked 50 calls in like 2 days. And that was for free. And they were basically 2/3 of them were qualified. So yeah, it was just pretty awesome.
And so I assume that by focusing and narrowing on the tech, like a lot of the growth then happened through word of mouth from there.
Actually, so a lot of it was yes and no. It kind of depends on, we didn't really focus on a specific community. That's something we're doing now with the VC kind of space in a particular stage of startups, but it really was just staying consistent with Twitter. So the thing is, like, Twitter X, it warms people up to the idea that like you're the right person for the job kind of thing. And then most people aren't ready to actually engage in video until they are. And then when they are, they don't know who to go with. So being in front of those people just at the right time and being consistent was really important. Now we are taking, more of like a personable or like community kind of approach where it will be a lot more referral based. But up until now, not really, honestly.
Yeah, well, but now you're going into YouTube. And so you stayed consistent on Twitter for a long time. So what is it that ticked that made you say, all right, let's go into YouTube? And what is different about trying YouTube? Like if you tried YouTube back then, do you think it could have like prevented your growth because the platform is so different? Or do you think you should have gone earlier on it?
Oh man, we could get really into the weeds here. So let's start with like X versus YouTube just in general, completely unrelated to me. So YouTube, the reason it clicked for me and is clicking for a lot of people very recently is because let's say you spend an hour writing a thread on Twitter and you post it and whatever happens, right? If the likelihood of it going viral is very low. That happened to me once in basically tweeting every day for like 2 years. Or you spend an hour producing, which it takes longer than that, but you invest in an hour writing a YouTube script, right? You now have a YouTube script. Obviously, you have to record the video and stuff like that, but that script now is going to live on YouTube forever, whereas Twitter is purely chronological or for you feed. And so once something blows up, like that viral tweet, for example, that lasted for like 3-4 days and it was done. If a video goes viral on YouTube, it does not stop, like almost ever. The algorithm just keeps putting it in front of more and more and more people. Twitter doesn't really work that way. And the thing about YouTube too, that's very important and why video is so powerful is because if someone's reading your thread on Twitter, one, they're not getting FaceTime with you. So like on YouTube, your face is in front of the screen, right? You're on the video most of the time. And so it's less personable. And they're only there for like maybe a minute, right? Just kind of scrolling through the thread. YouTube, you have their full attention for like 8 to 15 minutes, one-on-one, full attention. And so you're building what's called a parasocial relationship where they're starting to feel like they know you as a person, and then they're more likely to trust you, work with you, buy from you, learn from you, like whatever your goal is. And that's why YouTube is so powerful, because it's a lot more personable. The algorithm reaches a lot more further. It's a lot more sustainable in the long term.
And so what have been your results so far? Just like, I know you're just getting started, but I'm curious, like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, on YouTube specifically.
Yeah.
So I'm actually, let's see, I've posted like 12 videos on there maybe, and I'm up to 1,200 subs. What I'm noticing is, one, I'm getting a lot more data than I got from Twitter. So in terms of who's my audience, and like the thing with video is it adds another layer of analytics, so you can see when the viewer retention is dropping off. So I'm seeing like where people are dropping off, who's watching, like what, like why do they care, right? That's the first thing. The second thing, which you can get on X, but compared to when I started, the sentiment is a bit different now. But on YouTube, people are commenting like, this is so, like, great feedback. Like, this is so great. Can you talk about this topic? They're asking really thoughtful questions. On X, it's a lot of just kind of, whatever, right? So I really am enjoying that part of YouTube. So, but yeah, to answer your question full circle, mainly really enhanced analytics, really good like community feedback and feeling. And I'm getting a good amount of people too, even though I have only 1,200 subs, that are like, hey, I saw you on YouTube, or I saw your starter story episode, which for reference, it has like 150,000 views, I think. But imagine if it had 1.5. I mean, I've had people like cold email me from just seeing my YouTube stuff, and I only have 1,200 subs. So I'm a big believer.
That's huge. And I'm excited to see how the journey goes there. But, going back to the intention thing, I'm curious, like, people are always talking and debating like, oh, I'm either going to go into short form or I'm going to go into YouTube. How do you compare short form with long form? Who is short form right for? Is it even worth it? How do these two compare?
Yeah, it can be pretty nuanced too, depending on platform. For example, short form on Instagram is amazing because it grows your following really fast. If you post short form on YouTube, you can get the same amount of traction, but the issue is you're attracting an audience that is not going to want to watch your long form videos. And so that poses kind of an issue, right? Because long form is really where you make the big gains. Again, not even just financial, whether that's, building trust with your audience or whatever. And so for Instagram, it's great. I'll stay away from it on YouTube. And I've talked to multiple people about this and like watched videos and stuff on it. So the other thing too with short form is, again, back to intentionality. The purpose of short form is to get people to take the next step and stop watching your short form as fast as possible. So there's some exceptions to this, but if one of your audience members watches 20 of your short form clips, you're probably doing something wrong. Like, get them to download your guide or like watch your long form on YouTube. Like, you want to convert them to the next step as fast as possible. And that also includes the best one, which is owning your audience, which is basically an email list, as you guys know, right? So you're using the short form to basically increase the chances of virality, and then take that virality and that attention and convert it into something that's more meaningful.
So for individuals themselves, like I know you produce high quality videos for companies, etc., who want to get a message across in the features, but for individuals themselves, how do you think about quality of the production of the content they make? So like, your quality of content is like amazing, and that's what you do. But I'm sure people get confused of like, shit, I'm hearing UGC and raw stuff works, and then I see this creator with like super sick, highly produced content. Like, which one should I do? How do you think of like high quality versus sort of like raw produced content?
Yeah, again, I think there's a lot of nuance to it. For example, as you're probably the expert at e-com. Like UGC is better basically being low quality than like with a camera and stuff because it's viewed as more trustworthy. It goes back to your messaging and the audience again. Like, what is your goal for e-commerce? The reason UGC works and is so popular is because it's very like trusted by the audience, because it's like someone who is like them using selfie mode on an iPhone and promoting a product, but not really promoting it, right? Versus something very high quality in terms of production is like if you're a B2B tech company who is making a, not a demo, but like basically an authoritative piece of content that walks someone through how to do a process. Like, you want to be professional, right? Like, you're not going to have an iPhone in selfie mode making that video. And so it all goes back to the messaging and the positioning of your content and really what your audience is going to care about, right? So if that's a way to answer the question, it's basically thinking of the end result and who your audience is and what they would respond best to.
Yeah, Scott, I think that's a really important way to think of it. And kind of following up there, one thing that when video comes up, a lot of people in our space, you know, there's so many tools popping up that are quick for clipping. You know, people just post like random things from their podcast. Like, how would you be thinking about if you're trying to grow a personal brand, or even just from the video side of things? Because like Ramon said, you know, you guys are produced to the max. Obviously, people don't have the time or budget to produce $1,000 like single clips. Do you think it's something where, you know, you just go in and you spray and pray and hope something hits? Or do you think that, you know, even being more strategic about what clips you're sending out on short forms matters?
Yeah, there's a spectrum for sure. I think the main thing, and especially like what's relevant to the tool you guys are building too, is if you have something recorded like we're recording now, it's a waste to not clip it up and have it be short form. And, you know, editing it a little bit, sure. Which again is like what your tool is great for, is not just, so you're not just posting like a raw video, because that's probably not going to work at all. But I think that should also be combined with very strategic scripting and topics, because the way it works is it's like a funnel, like anything, right? So the very scripted and strategic stuff, that's what's going to go viral. But when that goes viral, people are going to click on your profile and be like, who is this? What are they talking about? You know, all this stuff. And that's where kind of this kind of content comes in, where it's like the longer form stuff that's clipped up, because the intention of that is not to go viral. The intention of that is to take a little bit of that rapport building and put it into a clip, right? And so it's kind of like backfilling. So you have like the viral content, then you have the authoritative content. And so content like this is authoritative. You know, this episode of the podcast isn't probably going to go viral because it's, you know, I'm not like out here saying some crazy hook that's going to get people to stop scrolling, right? But if Ramon tomorrow gets in front of a camera and says something that like is polarizing, people are going to want to know who Ramon is. So they're going to come and watch the clips maybe from this episode or other episodes. So that's kind of how I view that system.
Well, now we know our strategy.
He just might. Yeah, Ramon just might. And hey, never say never, Scott. Hey, the other thing I wanted to talk about with you is, like Ramon was saying, you guys obviously do your really high produced stuff, and you've seen some like really great traction already on the YouTube side of things. What is the type of content that you're putting out on YouTube? What are some of your videos that have hit? How long are they? What content are you covering? Like, just take us through that.
Well, yeah, so I'm still really early on YouTube. Like, I'm by no means an expert on YouTube. Like, I only have 1,200 subs, but I've been doing video. I do consider myself like an expert on video. So I'm really just trying a bunch of different things. The main thing and how I'm positioning it right now is, what can I do? So also for context, like, the people that would buy from Videospark are not watching my YouTube channel. Like, that's kind of not what the purpose of it is. It's almost a personal experiment for my personal brand. And so I'm making a lot of videos that are honestly just related to what my expertise is in video, and just making stuff based on that. So it's been like tutorials. So my most two popular videos are basically just tutorials. Some kind of like advice beginner stuff and kind of things that are similar to what I was tweeted. It's just positioned a little bit differently. And I'm just trying to give that away. And then another thing I'm starting in the next basically week is pretty much a podcast, like an in-person thing where I'm going to be going around and interviewing like industry leaders in the video space and really asking them about like what their journey was, how they got started, how they're monetizing, video as a skill and as a service, so that I can just bring this information to the public. And then in terms of monetization, which we didn't cover on YouTube either, and why it's a lot more powerful than X, is, once you get an audience of a certain size, you'll have AdSense, sponsorships, your own info product on the back end, and a lot of stuff like that. So that's kind of how I'm starting out. It's just an experiment.
As we wrap towards the end here, I'm curious, how would your business have looked if you didn't build it from like your audience on X? How would you have grown it? How different would it be today? Do you think it'd be smaller? Do you think it would have been a lot more uphill? In other words, how did building an audience help you grow your business?
I think it would have been maybe half as successful, because it's like pouring jet fuel on a fire is really what it is comparative to. If someone has 100,000 followers on Twitter, I mean, you can make a lot of money. Like, you do not, even 10,000, like, you do not need a big audience at all. I mean, if you have, you guys would probably know, if you have a newsletter of 10,000 people, I mean, that's like a full side income right there. So my perspective has actually shifted from 2 years ago, where I kind of ignored the audience building thing, and I was doing it because, I thought I could like make a quick bag like in my business. But now I've flipped it to where the real asset is not the money you're making from the audience, it's the audience themselves, because that will really take care of the rest. So basically take everything we've talked about in this episode and use that to your advantage in building your audience. And I think you'll do just fine, whether you're B2B or B2C.
Yeah, I love that. And Scott, now we're going to hit you with just a couple of questions from the lightning round. So who's a creator that like you really look up to and why?
Man, there's a lot. I would say a real OG in the video space is Parker Walbeck. So he's full-time filmmaker, and he was in the YouTube game a long time ago, but he basically has done all the monetization and given a lot of value to his audience and stuff that we talked about. So I'd have to go with him in terms of the video space. Really set the example.
What about on X?
Daniel Fazio, Cold Email Wizard. Yeah, he's great. Those guys changed my life. Him and Andre Hakel, the Knowledge X guys, Client Ascension guys, they taught me all the fundamentals of business that got me to where I am now. So, and they're hilarious.
I love that. And last question for you. What do you have going, like, why don't you tell me about your 2024 strategy for YouTube? We're talking about YouTube. Obviously, You do video. We're growing the business. You've tested the waters. You're at 1,200 subs. Like, what's next? Tell me about your plan for your next 20 videos.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to hit this, but I want to get to 10K by the end of the year. We'll see. We'll just have to see how the videos perform. I want to get to 10K. I am starting that podcast, so I want to do basically an episode a week, starting like we need like a couple week buffer to just get them recorded, but basically expect like one episode a week for that with the video industry leader thing. That's going to be called Video Vitals, and I also have a course called Video Vitals that's kind of on the back end of that. And then in terms of the strategy for what I'm actually going to be posting on YouTube, I think it's going to be a mix of tutorials, stories about previous video things I've done with whatever I've documented, like some stuff from like my camera roll and stuff, as well as the interviews, and then probably just like general tips, kind of like Iman Godzi type stuff, but for video people, not like business people stuff. So yeah.
Nice. Well, we're fired up to follow along. And for anyone who's listening, where can they find you and connect with you?
Yeah, my handle on basically everything is Scott C. Millard. So it's Scott with 2 T's, the letter C, and then Millard. That's X, YouTube, and Instagram, basically.
Sweet. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Scott,